Hi everybody, it's Curious Raven with another true crime. This one is kinda close to my Blue Line family. It is about Officer Sidney Griffis. He was a hero. He did what he needed to do to make sure everyone was safe. The public was safe. Correctional Officer Fred Griffis was shot and killed during an escape attempt during a prisoner transport in West Palm Beach. He and an armed escort officer were jumped by two armed suspects in front of a doctor's office on North Olive Avenue near Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. The men disarmed the armed officer and demanded that Officer Griffis hand over the keys to unlock the van and free the prisoner. Officer Griffis did not comply. Instead, he tossed the keys into a bush. When he tossed the keys, the suspect shot and killed him. Both suspects were apprehended after a chase in which they fired at pursuing officers. The man who shot Officer Griffis was apprehended and sentenced to death. He died in prison on July 17, 1999, from injuries he suffered in prison. The other subject was also sentenced to death and was executed on June 12, 2013. Okay, into my own words. His end of watch was Wednesday, June 24th, 1987. That was the year I was born, actually. He was a correctional officer. The story goes that when you transport outside of the prison, especially to a doctor's office, one officer will have a taser, and then the other one will have a sidearm, a gun issued. And unfortunately, the man that they were escorting to the doctor was a lifer who murdered people. So, unfortunately, in the prison system, when inmates have to be escorted and transported, we don't tell them where they're going. And this is why we do not tell them where they are going. Because somehow this inmate that was being transported found out where he was going, the building, what time, what day. And guess what? Two of his little criminal friends came to do an elaborate escape. And this is what happened. They were escorting him. The inmate was still in the van, shackled, locked up. The two officers just got out to get the inmate out. And these two guys show up and practically hold up the officers at gunpoint and tell them, especially Officer Fred Griffis, give me the van keys, because they wanted just to steal the van and drive off with the inmate. You know, their bestie, I guess. I will get to their names and all of that and what happened to them, but I just want you to understand the story first of what happened. Like I said, the guy in the back was a murderer. There was no way that he could let that guy escape. He could go and be dangerous and murder more people. So he risked his life to not allow that to happen. So when they asked for the keys, he threw them far into a bush somewhere. And that really pissed off the two men that had him at gunpoint, where one of them came around and shot him in the head once, and then the other one shot him twice in the chest. It's a tragedy. Stuff like this happens, a lot, even to road officers, road cops. You see on the news all the time that somehow these criminals end up disarming the correctional officers and killing them, and it's just really sad. I will be coming out with more true crime on correctional officers that have passed away due to criminals and inmates murdering them. I feel like their voice needs to be heard, because you don't really see this kind of stuff in mainstream true crime. Let me explain to you who Officer Griffis was. He was a U.S. Army veteran who served 3 tours during the Vietnam War. He was decorated 7 times for bravery, including 4 Bronze Stars and 3 Oak Leaf Clusters, all given for heroism. He also was an Army Ranger, an expert rifleman. He was cited twice for saving the lives of fellow soldiers. He worked at Glades Correctional Institution in Florida a year prior going into the military. Well, he went through the military all those years. He retired from the military. And he decided to go back to the Glades Correctional Institution. And he was only there for about 3 weeks after he retired from the military before he was murdered. He left behind his mother and his sister and his brother. These are some voices from his family that I would like to read to you. Ron Griffis, his brother, carries a photo of one of the 4 Bronze Stars his brother, Fred, earned in Vietnam in his cell phone. The medal is a symbol of his brother's service to his country, but also of the role Fred Griffis played in the family that struggles after 26 years to make sense of his senseless death. He was my John Wayne, Griffis said. Every good quality I have as a man comes from him. Recalling Fred's booming laugh, the uncanny ability to fuse potentially volatile situations, and the cruel irony of his death, Ron Griffis and other family members said it's time for their brother's killer to pay the ultimate price for his crime. Okay, the second gunman that shot him twice in the chest was William Van Poyck. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but it's Poyck. He was scheduled to be killed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison for Fred Griffis' death. Fred Griffis' sister said she just wants it over with and done with. This has dragged on for years, and they just want justice for Freddy. That's what they called him, Freddy. His family did. While other families have endured similar agonizing delays, the Griffis family experience has been unique. But the strange cast of characters that swirled around the murder kept their brother's death in the limelight, unfortunately, forcing them to relive the loss over and over again. So this drug on for years, y'all. There was 3 suspects, 3 trials. I've already told you about Van Poyck. The one in the van was inmate O'Brien, the one that told his little friends where he would be at. The other inmate that actually got killed in the prison was inmate Valdez. His name was Frank Valdez, an accomplice of Van Poyck's. Went to the driver's side of the van. Turner testified that Van Poyck took his gun, ordered him to get under the van, and kicked him while he was attempting to comply with Van Poyck's order. The other officer was Officer Turner. He testified that while under the van he saw Griffis exit the van. He noticed other persons forcing Griffis to the back of the van. And while noticing 2 sets of feet, this is Turner's what he saw while he was underneath the van, proximity to the rear of the van. He heard a series of shots and saw Griffis fall to the ground. Griffis had refused to recuperate and tossed the keys into some nearby bushes and refused to say where they were. Turner further stated that Van Poyck had stopped kicking him when the gunfire started, but noted that he did not know where Van Poyck was at the time of the shooting. Griffis was shot 3 times, once in the head and 2 in the chest. Expert testimony indicated that the shot to the head was fired with the barrel of the gun placed against Griffis' head, and that each of the wounds would have been fatal. It was also determined that the murder weapon was a Hungarian Inter-Arms 9mm semi-automatic pistol. After Griffis was shot, Turner was forced to get up from under the van and look for the keys. Upon realizing that Turner did not have them, Valdez fired numerous shots at a padlock on the van in an attempt to free O'Brien. One of the shots ricocheted off the van and struck Turner, causing him minor injuries. Turner testified that at around this time, Van Poyck aimed the firearm at him and pulled the trigger. Van Poyck and Valdez then fled the scene in a Cadillac, and the chase with police ensued. During the chase, while Valdez drove, Van Poyck fired numerous shots at the pursuing police cars, striking 3 of them. They traveled down Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard, and the car turned south on Australia Avenue. Eventually, Valdez lost control of the car and struck a tree in the Palm Beach airport. The two were arrested, and 4 pistols were recovered from the car, including the service revolver of the officer. Van Poyck testified in his own behalf, denied that he shot Griffis, and stated that while kicking Turner, he heard the gunshots and saw Griffis fall to the ground. He did, however, acknowledge that he planned the operation and recruited Valdez to assist him in his plan. Additionally, he stated that they took 3 guns with them. Van Poyck was tried and convicted for first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, aiding in an attempted escape, aggravated assault, and 6 counts of attempted manslaughter. By a vote of 11-1, the jury recommended the penalty of death to be imposed. The trial judge followed the jury's recommendation and sentenced Van Poyck to death. Van Poyck had a long history of robbery and burglary despite his upbringing as the son of an Eastern Airlines executive. At his trial in 1990, Valdez was restrained after striking a man who was testifying against him. Valdez was also sentenced to death for his role in the crime. He was beaten to death in 1999 during a violent cell extraction. Griffis' family of West Palm Beach attended almost every court proceeding. They watched the target of the escape attempt, James O'Brien, acquitted in Griffis' death. The guy that called his friends to come get him out was acquitted. That is some messed up crap. Fred made a decision to do a certain thing, and we should stand by that. We resign ourselves to behave in a fashion that would be commendable to Fred's memory. Griffis' family believes in the judicial system. The system is slow and sometimes you get frustrated with it, but it grinds its way through and it works. They waited 3 decades. 3, like I said. This happened in 1987. And Van Poyck, and he wasn't killed until June 12th, 2013. 1987, 2013, he sat his butt in prison. And finally, that day, he was killed. Fred Griffis' family did not watch because they said that they didn't want that memory and give that inmate that time to even them to entertain it. He was pronounced dead 23 minutes after the injection process. His final words were, "Set me free." There's a lot of weird stuff. Like, there was Valdez's wife, who was so wishy-washy. And, you know, she was like one that was on the stand trying to, like a character witness, I guess. First, she was like, oh yeah, because Valdez was saying that Van Poyck shot Griffis. And then Griffis was saying Valdez only shot Griffis. And Valdez's wife was like a character witness stating that she overheard and knew that Van Poyck said that he's the one that shot Griffis. Okay. But then when Valdez was killed in prison before he even got to trial, she went back on the stand and said, oh no, I was mistaken. It was my husband Valdez that only killed Griffis. Van Poyck didn't do it. So what I'm guessing that happened was after Valdez was killed in prison, Van Poyck went to Valdez's wife and said, please help me. Will you please testify that it was actually him that did it and you were just covering for him and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, the prison system and the jury did not have it. They were not having it at all. They said there needs to be justice. They were all in this. But I'm upset that O'Brien was acquitted. These other 2 men were killed for the murder, practically. And he gets off scotch-free. You know, he's in prison. He's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. But he wasn't in trouble for 2 officers being injured. And it's sad. I mean, Griffis was a stand-up guy. He was a hero. He did so much stuff in the army and saved so many people. And it breaks my heart that after he retired from the army, 20 plus years, and he goes back to work for the state, he gets murdered. It's crazy to me. I feel like if he had the weapon, it would have been different. And he must have been the one driving. Had to have been. I mean, well, yeah, he had the keys because it's policy. Whoever drives has the taser, and whoever is right, on the other side has the gun. So I just wished it was different. I'm glad that his family finally got justice. I know there's probably a lot more crazy stuff into this story. When I first started as a correctional officer, the warden told us about this story. And it's like blast from the past, I feel happy that I can tell someone about this. Honor his memory. I'm glad he got justice. And I'm glad the two men that shot him are no longer here to hurt anyone else. I will put all of the references that I got all this information from in the description. And if you want to go read it, you can. There's like a whole court document of everything. Okay, everyone. Remember, I do have a Patreon. I would like to maybe start reading some romantic 18 plus stories on there. And if you're interested in that, you should go and sign up. I think the tiers are from $2 and up. And, any tier will have that availability to listen to it. I do have merch as well. All of the links will be in the description. I appreciate all of y'all listening. And I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please send me your stories to my email, curiousraven87@gmail.com. And I will check them out. Coming up, As the Raven Dreams and I are going to do a story together. So be ready for that. And be ready for me to read some creepypastas from hair-raising narratives. I will also put their link down below as well. Please stay tuned for my next video. But until then, remember, it's scary out there.